Very good evening from South Cambridge here in the UK. First of all, the important stuff. Here's my dog, again, chasing a balloon. Shortly followed by a picture of my Starlink, a sunset. Again, just trying to hit all those YouTube criteria of successful people on here. I'm not one of them. Anyway, this evening I have something a little bit different. All things Starlink are happening here. In tonight's episode, I'm chatting with Aaron Wilkes. And Aaron Wilkes, I believe, is one of the first people in the United Kingdom to have Starlink. And he's quite well linked in, I believe. Anyway, we're going to probe into that, have a chat, see how things are going, see how things have been, and see where he thinks things are going to go in the future. I hope you enjoy it. And I will catch you later. I almost forgot to say that. Or should I have said it at the end? Here it is. Well, thanks very much for joining me, Aaron. It's real nice to see you. And this is the first time we've actually had a chat. We've chatted on a Facebook page you set up. But from what I understand, you were the first person to own Starlink in the UK. Is that right?
So not the first. There was an initial person in December who had it sent out to them. And then there was the first wave of orders that started to come through from the States. And that's where I joined it there. I think it was middle of January it came through, the email from them. So yeah, that first wave of initial customers over here in the UK.
So I kind of feel like you're a bit of a celebrity because you know, if you type in your name, you pop up all over like newspapers and websites. People really interested in that early experience, and I'd love to hear from you what that was like. You know, have you ever been in the press before, or have you ever had that sort of attention before?
Never had it at all. I had the Press Association reach out via Twitter to me. A really nice guy called Jamie there. He did just a very quick article over the phone. And the next minute he's like, can we send the film crew round? And then the next day it was South East News just turning up with Piers Hopkirk and a camera. And the next minute you're on TV the next day. And it's a bit like, well, this is going a little bit too quick. But I tell you, the interest is massive in it.
Yeah.
Just from that one PA piece, so many different companies picked it up and have had so many messages from it. A little bit surreal, to be honest.
And what do you think it was? So why were people interested in it?
I think there's so many people out there who want better connectivity. And I think the pandemic's just sort of highlighted how bad rural connectivity can be for people. Like, it's a struggle sometimes just running Netflix with Disney Plus and potentially having Zoom calls. And I think to be able to do that all at once is an absolute game changer for rural communities that have been probably let down in the past by UK infrastructure.
Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting that even right now, so we are currently Starlink to Starlink, right?
We are zooming up together up to those satellites, and yeah.
That's insane, isn't it?
It's just weird to think that within that such a short space of time, the signal's being zoomed up, zoomed back down around the world in 40 milliseconds potentially.
It's crazy. And it's also interesting because one of the things that in my short existence on YouTube, I touch on the stability a lot. And of course we rightly so are. And then we have to say this, we're in very early beta days still. But you've been there right from the start. And I'd love to hear what it was like in the beginning.
Like the first day I had it running, I probably only got a very short amount of usage out of it because I had to go to work that day. So the second day was my excitable moment of let's play with Starlink. And sadly, it let us down a little bit. It came out to 127 minutes of beta downtime within that 12-hour period. And it was unusable. Yeah. Seriously unusable. But it's been great to see the development over time with this, because slowly that figure has been eroded down from 127 minutes down to 74 minutes, down to 36 minutes. And now we're sitting at, I think today is, in the last 12-hour period, is 2 minutes of beta downtime where I haven't had connectivity. Yeah. And that isn't all at once. Like, it's a small little bit here and a small little bit there that potentially could have been overnight.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I've noticed is that it does tend to go down overnight. And I've talked about router configurations and various other things. And now we've mentioned routers. I have got Des here, and he's still on original firmware, I believe. Since you got yours? Oh, you got to be kidding! What do you call him?
It is Terry.
So how come you have a Terry? What's going on there?
I just think it's terrible, so I've called it Terry. I haven't got the eyes yet. I tried to get hold of some, but I couldn't get them.
Brilliant.
But that is Terry. I thought I'd grab it out because we've disconnected it from the network. I just don't think their router is quite there yet. I don't know what you think of it.
I mean, I like him. I like him, as in it's great. Like it's and people actually comment on his little mouth. It might not focus in there, but he's got that little mouth, and I just think, has yours got that as well? The little hole there? Or?
Yeah, it's got the little light.
Oh, it's the light. Of course, it is the light.
But have you got the? I've accidentally dropped it mark on the side.
Oh, flip. Do you know what? It has got one, but I haven't dropped it. And maybe it's actually like a birthmark. It could be that. I don't know. But yeah, so you're currently rocking your own router. That means so you're on a what are you going with?
So we swapped out and we've gone for a Dream Machine Pro.
Right. And how is that working out for you in terms of stability? And have you had to set up a static route so you can get your all your data and various things?
Yeah, static route set up so I can access the statistics. I'm by no means a networking guru, and just using some of the online forums, it's so easy to set up. And while we're in this beta period, I thought it would be beneficial for us to have a WAN 2 connection so I could link up my traditional fixed broadband with Starlink just for those periods where it has been going down. But I'm at that point now where I want to rip that cable out and just run with Starlink. Yeah,
and I think we're close, aren't we?
We are extremely close, I think. Like 2 minutes is nothing.
No. And I just wonder, because you're a lot further south than I am, so I'm kind of a bit over to the left, a bit over to the west, a bit up to the north slightly, and I do seem to have a bit more downtime than you do. I think I had about 2 minutes or something, and that's not bad, but zero obstructions. And I think, have you had that issue with obstructions or not?
So I don't tend to see obstructions come up in the statistics as in the graph that we get. But when I go back over into the debug data itself, I do get random obstructions. But what's really interesting is there's another Starlink user probably 3 miles away from here that I asked yesterday, what are your obstructions looking like? And they said they've had 15 seconds. Now I went into my app, into debug. What did I have? 15 seconds.
Right.
Bigger, which I thought was really interesting. So potentially that's something that's on the network side rather than obstructions coming from our dishes themselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting because and for some reason, I'm going to make a general association here, and it's probably not accurate, but people that tend to be early adopters also tend to be quite OCD-ish. Am I right maybe in saying that? And the thing is, I take this responsibility, like, how can there be obstructions? I feel like it's me, it's probably not. It's probably something in space, or it's just a bit of a firmware or a bug somewhere.
But what we see on the statistics is what Starlink want us to see.
Yeah.
So behind it is a load of information that they're drilling into. So, for example, if you were to take your dishy and go out of your cell area, you would get a load of beta downtime, but filled with obstruction. So it would usually kick off with obstruction, go into downtime, bring your service back in, and then drop into obstruction again. Yeah. So it's all about how Starlink are collecting that data, but it doesn't report right, or really how we see it within the statistics themselves.
And now you've mentioned it, that was one of the things I was really hoping to speak to you about. You seem to be quite well linked in with Team Starlink. Is that fair to say, or am I off on that?
Before I got on the beta program, they called up and said, "Oh, would just mind having a chat with us about the current experience of your internet connection in the UK, what you'd like, and just have a chat with us about it. And that's where the relationship with the UK launch manager for Starlink's come from. And it's quite nice because he'll drop in quite often and just say, "Hey, Aaron, how's it going?
Wow.
Can you give feedback on this? Or tell me what's going on over there? What's the general feeling at the moment?"
Yeah.
But it's quite nice to continually have that contact with them because they actively want feedback. I don't necessarily they get it correct from the surveys that they send out. I think that they always want more and they want to develop more.
So when you say he dropped in, what he literally like comes in your house or something, or what like drives by, or what goes on there? What's that about?
No, they're in the States.
All right, so it's a virtual drop in.
It's just literally open up Teams, and the initial one was just a Teams chat. But it's quite interesting. SpaceX have got a policy of no webcams. So it feels a little bit weird just seeing my face on the screen and a random voice coming out of it. Yeah. Technically, do I know they're Starlink? But it's quite nice to have that conversation and continue email contact with them.
Yeah, for sure. And so have you got this visual in your mind of what this guy looks like?
Yes.
Go on. What is it?
I won't drop it in too much, but they are a member of one of our communities online. So they are there. Yeah. They are lurking in the background. I won't give too much away. I'm sure they wouldn't be too happy.
I know, I get it. I get it. But, you know, I guess we're like, as a user and as somebody that, well, I wasn't sure what I went into. I was really excited about the technology side of it, and, you know, really wanted to succeed. I think my first few days were like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to get my old ISP. But I think even that was 3 weeks ago. But as time has moved on, I've seen it progress. And I think fair play to you, because you I'm guessing you paid from day one as well, like back last year.
Yeah, paid the exact same amount. The kit fee, still paid a monthly fee now, exactly the same.
Yeah.
But it's all about going on that journey with them. But I'm convinced from what they said at the beginning, they said to me, give us 4 to 6 weeks and you will have a workable service. And it got to 6 weeks and we had a workable service. So that initial commitment from them to say, right, it's going to be rocky, bear with us, was enough for me now to trust them. And I think that trust piece is really key with an internet service provider. They came to me a couple of days ago and just said, give us 2 things that you'd like to see us improve on, which I thought was quite a strange subject, but I gave them the 2 things that I thought they need to improve on.
And what were they? Can you tell us or not?
I said communication and the support system. I think they just need to be a little bit more giving with what's going on, what developments are happening. If it's going to be rocky, just say it's going to be rocky for a few days.
Yeah.
And then on the support side of it, I think the Beta is growing really, really well in the UK, and obviously hugely in the States. And I just think their support system needs to keep up with that flow of customers. So it needs to move away from ticket-based and move into more potentially live chat for anything that's fatal. I know users have been offline for sort of days without having access to support or support tickets.
Yeah.
So I think that really needs to move along quite quickly for them as the Beta expands, which I think is fair to ask of them. What about yourself? What if you were to give them 2 things, what would you say they need to improve on?
I would say, and I know this is common, but I think for me it's about ping. And see, stability is a weird one, because sometimes you'll have no dropouts, but you will just have, your service will just go and it'll show this really high ratio of latency, and that can just be. It's rare now. I'm not originally, as I say, a few weeks ago, it was pretty frequent. I think I want them to, and I'm not a massive Apple fanboy or anything, but I want them to have, and not now, because I don't think Apple's customer service is great. I think that historic, that really, like for example, you ring Amazon at the minute and you say, look, I've got a problem with this item, and they say, well, we'll just send you out a new one. And I'm not talking about, it's just that kind of level of excellence, and I think that the brand of Elon Musk. I think the brand of Tesla and ultimately now Starlink and SpaceX. I just feel they could be excellent. They could, the innovation, they're leading it. And I think in terms of customer service, they could definitely lead that as well. I don't know what you think about that.
That's 100%. Like that. I'm a Tesla owner, and I heard through one of the groups that Tesla don't actually have a media or PR department. And I don't know if that ethos sort of comes through into SpaceX and Starlink, but they don't want to have media or PR departments. And I think actually Starlink is a different product from what Tesla is. Yeah. And in this circumstance, I think they need that element in there. I think they need to show off what they've got to almost the standards of what Apple do when they have their keynote speeches.
Yeah.
I think they benefit from that as a brand as well, just telling people what's going on.
Yeah, because it isn't it weird that it has this kind of real feel good about it, Starlink? Do you know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean by feel good. I think it's that special element to it. It's such a fresh new concept and idea that it's hard to put it into words, really, isn't it? It's just it's an amazing concept to think that you're tapping while we're speaking here online, and it's going up, hitting a satellite in space, coming back down via a ground station, doing its thing, and then heading back up and satellite and straight back down to you. I just find that mind-blowing.
It's incredible. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see visually what it looks like coming into the top of the house. It would be so sci-fi, like Star Trek almost, like the tractor beam coming down. It would be so impressive. And yeah, no, you're right. To think that this is going into space and then back down, and possibly because there is the ground unit, which isn't that far away from you. Is that one built in France or is that not built yet?
So from what we're thinking is I think it's called gravel lines or something.
Yeah.
Along that way, there's supposed to be a ground station there. I don't think it's built. I don't think it could be built, but I don't think it's got approval yet.
All right.
The other one in France is that we know of is southwestern.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of it. But I think we were using that one for a while, hence why we were getting so much beta downtime, just because the satellites weren't able to connect to using the UK and that French ground station. But since probably now for a good 2.5 weeks, I believe we have one in the UK. We've just got to find it. Yeah. I've seen some stuff pop up, and actually, not only being one of the early adopters of this, which you are, you've also set up and which is really helpful actually, a Facebook group, and that there's been a lot of good stuff on there, and just on that note, I want to ask you about the performance that was posted this morning. What do you think of that? The 700 meg down. I woke up and got immediately excited, and then I realised what the date was. Yeah. And then realised this guy's got a bonded connection, fibre to the property coming in.
Yeah.
Being a little bit jealous, but yeah.
And I totally bit it. Like I was like, I immediately started running speed tests thinking, no, this can't be true. And it wasn't, of course. I was totally sucked in, but yeah, he totally got me. But yeah.
That's a great thing, because we went from having a connection that was 80 megabytes, and overnight it just turned into 300 and 400 megabytes. So give it a few weeks, that could be a thing.
And I that's what I was going to come to next in terms of the, because I think I'm one of probably the people that share speeds more and sort of show that. And I love doing that. I think there's something that I'm addicted to speed tests, but is that the same sort of consistency that you would get? I know we're a fair bit apart, but would you get roughly the same in terms of your 250s to 350?
Yeah, absolutely. If I was to choose my range, it's exactly what you were showing via the videos that I've seen online. I am going to say I'm slightly jealous of your 400 megabyte hit, and I've been working very hard to achieve that level of speed test finesse.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And the good thing is I have the ID for that, so I can prove it was legitimate. And I was really blown away. That just seemed to be a day that they rolled out a new firmware. And as soon as the firmware hit, I reset the router down here and ran that speed test and got a 400 meg. Actually, it went up to 409 meg, which was really, it's mind blowing when you think about it, isn't it? If you're talking about the early days when you were getting so much downtime to where we are now, to having 400 meg, and rightly, as you say, where could we be in a few months?
Like Elon tweeted to say that he was rolling out this 300 megabytes potentially by the end of 2021.
Yeah.
And that was like a month ago when he tweeted that. So from what I've heard is the kit itself can can process up to a 1 gigabyte connection. That's its sort of threshold. So is that the speeds that we could be seeing by the end of the year?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? And he's definitely one of these people that certainly seems to under promise and over deliver.
100%. Just you can see that from our figures. Like the initial email that we got inviting us onto the beta program said expect 50 meg down and 150 megabytes up.
Yeah.
50 to 150 megabytes download. That's been absolutely smashed by them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you just feel is starting to sell itself because it's an interesting concept. It's different, and he's literally said, "Well, I'm going to recreate the internet, effectively creativity, like the connection." You know,
it's almost like a sub-internet, isn't it? It's in essence, it is its own entity. It's not confined by politics or location so much. This is its own network potentially.
And I think heading into the future, you know, he's also made hints towards gaming, and I think the gaming community, in terms of sellability and that feel, is they're probably critical, I would say, in terms of the branding. You know, that almost when you look at Twitch or you look at the streamers, and if everybody is all of a sudden shouting about Starlink, it's gonna fly off the shelf to that market. But I just wonder, is he more interested in the people that live remotely and saying, well, I want to provide internet to the people that cannot currently get it?
Like, I don't know how it's going to compete with FTTP on latency over the long term. Because I don't know if they can get it under 20 milliseconds. I've not seen anything below sort of 24 in my few months on the program. So I really don't know. Elon could go and push the boundaries with it. He could go and say, right, down to 15, down to 10. But is the technology there for it? And can those satellites deliver it with the ground stations?
Yeah.
Knowing Elon, probably yes. But I think it will take a little bit of time.
It would be someone else, wouldn't it? You know, it really would. And to think that, and latency is critical. I'm rubbish at Gears of War and stuff. I do play it, and it's horrific. It's like a really bad car accident. Really, you know, people watch me because it's bad. You know, were you a gamer? Was that the sort of thing you were into? Have you tried it or not? PlayStation? I'm guessing PlayStation man, right?
I've got an Xbox. I've left it for the people to use in work at the moment, just to keep them entertained. But I did attempt Fortnite, and I went into the squad, hit the ground, and pretty much just got obliterated. And just what happened there within about 10 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of going forward then, and the interest in the chats that we see on the Facebook groups, is there anything that you would want to share that you think will help or encourage people, or even from a technical point of view, where people maybe are struggling or maybe falling out with the system for the wrong reason too early on in its life, if that makes sense? Is there anything that you could think of that might, I don't know, maybe put some people's concerns, maybe answer some questions that people have?
Probably the best way of wording it is that, yes, it is satellite broadband, but you can't think of it as satellite broadband. You've got to think of it as a new concept. Like if I'm on the computer browsing, or if I'm using Netflix or any other application, I don't think I'm using Starlink. It performs the same as when I'm at work using a work computer. I don't notice the latency in everyday usage. I think the other side of it is people can also be a little bit concerned of, where do I put it? Have I got enough space for it to be able to see the sky?
That's good.
And they'll probably say, just download the Starlink app. you can get in there without having an account, and you can physically view your obstruction in it and see that little patch of the sky that it really, really wants to see. The dish won't necessarily face that way because of the way it works. But but yeah, put your mind at rest, download the app, have a look at your obstructions, and it is as easy as as putting it down and plugging it in.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things that amazed me about it is when it turned up, and I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a couple of unboxing videos on the internet, and everything was plugged in already, apart from it being attached to the actual mains. I was like, it's the only product with the biggest set of instructions I've ever seen, and it was already stick it in the plug socket and go. And actually, that's one of the questions that I've seen pop up a few times about setup and how hard is it? And I'm like, you literally take it out of the box and put it in the garden and go.
I'd say you could probably give it to a 12 or 13-year-old with that one card instruction that they give you and go, can you go and set up the internet connection, please? And they'd be able to do it. It's just so simple. Like, if I was potentially to move address, say, within the UK and in an open area where Starlink are serving, then I don't need to wait for someone to come out and connect me up. I pack the dish up, I move house, and I get it out at the next house. There's no need to wait now. It's so on demand.
Yeah, and I wonder, is that something, because they talk about this, and I think it's probably a more relevant factor in the States or bigger areas about this travel, going outside your cell and various other things. And I just wonder, is that more about stability rather than actually, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
The cell concept is really, I think, unusual because the satellites are passing over us. They're technically covering such a wide area. But what I think they're trying to do is manage the beta as much as possible and test in the locations that they want to test in at the moment. And that's the only reason I think they're releasing it in cells. I can't, off the top of my head, think of any other reason except it's a controlled release to be able to test the system to how they want it to be tested. It will get there. It will roll out, and all those cells will potentially be non-existent anymore. And hopefully, we should be able to roam with the kit.
Yeah, and actually, it's when you're talking about it, my mind's going to a place of, if you stick it in your car and you're driving, you come against this invisible wall, and your Starlink just won't go outside of it. It jumps out of the car. It's like, no, I'm not. No, that's it. Not going outside my cell, and it just seems like an impossible way to police it. But then I'm guessing at the same time, the locations that these things are being deployed is critical to their rollout. There's no way they're doing stuff like sending. I think I've heard stories about people that were in a queue and people ordering after but getting it before. And I just wonder, is it more about the geography and the logistics rather than actually there's a queue, genuinely a queue? Well, there is, but it's not a priority queue, if that makes sense, as in first come, first serve.
I think a lot of people were disappointed when they said sort of take your space in the queue. And I think they meant it from an honest point of view is, you're on the list, we will get this to you, but just allow us to run the beta and let us roll it out. And if your cell opens up, guess what? You're going to be at the front of the queue to get it. Yeah. I think that's all it is. It's just that little bit of a waiting game. I think within our cell, there's about 6 to 7 dishes here in our part of Kent. But if you go, a mile outside of the cell, you might have a load of people waiting. And I genuinely want them to have the same experience as we get. But it's just that little bit more of a wait, even though you might be a mile outside of it. Yeah. He's coming.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And do you know what? I'm quite excited for you, because I feel like you're now a celebrity. Not because of this, because this, I'm like tiny fish in a massive world, but because of you being in the press, you're like the early guy, and Aaron Wilkes, the legend, and so maybe be someday. And I'm just excited about what potentially your involvement could be in the future, because who knows, right?
But I wouldn't say I was any different to any other beta user out there at the moment. It's just the press came along and went, can we have a look at it? And I probably went, yeah, go on, because you get really excited about it. Like, look at this amazing bit of kit that SpaceX have sent out. But yeah, I just want people to experience it, probably like yourselves, because it's such, we use that word, it's a game changer. And it genuinely is for people who have got 1 megabyte broadband connection. I just want them to go out there and experience it. And I think a part of that, doing the news pieces, working with PA, doing the BBC piece, was really to get the word out about Starlink, and it's coming.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think that for me, it was critical about upload, and it would be great to see that improve. And I think sometimes my highest is 50. I've hit a 50 upload before, and it was for me, that was a lot, considering I was getting 4.5 before. So, the big difference in terms of workflow. And, I do a lot of media stuff and various things, and I have to send massive files all over the place. So upload's critical. So yeah, it's definitely a game changer, I feel. And you're right to use those words, and it's exciting times. And it's one of those things that I feel I want to champion and shout about, and just see it grow and see it be successful, because it matters to me, because it's it's going to be, I'm not there yet. I'm not unplugging that little bad boy. I'm going to wait, but it will be our sole internet. And I kind of hope for a lot of people, they get to experience that as well. So yeah, anyway, Aaron, any last words before we close up here? I'm aware I've taken up a lot of your time, and I want to just say a massive thank you. And I bet you people will appreciate hearing from you and your side of it, going from the start of this to where we are today. And obviously, knowing that there's still a journey to go ahead. But is there anything that you'd like to say just before we close up?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me come on and having a chat to you. It's been great fun being able to talk to another Starlink sort of beta user. It's great.
It's a pleasure, man. Thank you.
I think the biggest thing is for rural communities, this will change how you access the internet. And even for people who are in central London who get really, really poor connectivity, probably one of the most modern cities in the world, this has the ability to open up so many opportunities to you.
Yeah.
But I think it's getting there. There's a lot of people in the queue to get Starlink, and it's just that message of wait that little bit longer, it will be there with you. And when it's with you, it'll be brilliant. Like going from 127 minutes of downtime to 2 minutes. And that commitment from them and to the UK market, I think, for me, is huge. And I just want people to be able to experience it who've got poor internet connectivity. Yeah. But yeah, hold out, it's coming.
It's good, man. It's so good. And yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate it. So whatever you're doing for the rest of the night, have a good one, Aaron, and I will catch you later. I had to get that in there because I've said that at the end of each video. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. And goodbye from Terry.
Oh, and goodbye from Des.